Next, residents of the Ukrainian capital experienced another night of deadly attacks as Russia launched a wave of missiles and drones at Kyiv and its surroundings. At least 17 people were killed. Rescuers have been trying to reach people trapped inside 3 blocks of flats that have partially collapsed. Ukraine's Air Force says a serious shortage of interceptor missiles meant none of the 23 ballistic missiles launched by Russia were actually shot down. President Zelensky urged Ukraine's allies to take strong decisions at Tuesday's NATO summit and to provide it with more air defences. Our correspondent Sarah Rainsford is at the scene of one of the attacks in Kyiv.
This is one of the 9-storey apartment blocks that was hit last night in this latest large-scale attack by Russia. The authorities are saying it was a missile that hit here directly, and you can see the damage. I mean, it is huge. There's a big hole through the middle of this block of flats, lots of flats destroyed up at the top, huge slabs of concrete that have crashed down onto the floors below. And there are rescuers and recovery teams working at the scene with their big diggers and the cranes to try to clear that rubble, to try to make the area safe, but also because we believe that there could be some people still missing. There's a lady on a bench over there who's been crying, and we were told that she had 2 relatives who are still missing and perhaps are somewhere beneath the ruins of their home. We also spoke to a lady, Elena, who lives in the other part of the building, which is more or less intact. Now, she said she heard 1 explosion and then she got out of bed and she rushed towards the shelter, and then the second explosion hit. She said it shook the building terribly. She was terrified. She hadn't gone to the shelter, but after that she went straight down. But of course, by that point already people had been killed here, and the scene was the same at several blocks of flats across Ukraine's capital. And one question that Elena had for me, she said, it looks like we didn't intercept many missiles last night. And she said she had a question for Ukraine's allies, which is, why is that? If Ukraine needs more interceptor missiles, she wants to know why they're not coming. And that's the question that President Zelensky had too. He pointed to the shortage of particularly Patriot interceptor missiles for Ukraine's air defences, and he said the shortage of those is causing scenes like this with more and more frequency. This is another massive attack, large-scale attack by Russia just 4 days after an attack on Kyiv killed at least 30 people here in the capital.
Thanks to Sarah for that. We'll hear more from her in a moment. But first, Olga Malchevska is here. And Olga, you've managed to speak to people, some of the survivors effectively, in some of the damaged buildings. What have they been telling you?
Well, I've been talking to 2 women who managed to survive this awful attack, and one of them, whose name is Svetlana, she told me that she lives on the 17th floor of that high-rise building, and she has 2 children. So when the attack happened at night, she had to pack her children really quickly, and they were running down the stairs from the 17th floor, and I hope I can see the video now. That's the video she sent me. She managed to film it on her phone. That's their block on flats on fire. Then she said also that the roof of the block was completely on fire, and then while the fire brigade was coming to help them, while the rescues were on the way, the residents of the block started to deal with fire themselves, and her husband and other men, they rushed upstairs trying to get water there, and that's how they managed to preserve some flats and some homes. But obviously some of them, it was not possible to save them. So I suggest listening to what Svetlana told us. She sent us a little clip explaining what happened.
It's the debris from the enemy drone that landed on my home. The residents tried to put out the fire while the rescuers were on their way. There is a lot of damage to the roof and the flats below it, but our neighbors managed to stop the fire before it ruined other homes. Russians are evil. We have been living under these horrifying attacks day and night, hoping that one day evil will be held accountable.
We saw Svetlana standing on the roof of the block of flats where she has been living, and she also explained that there is actually no shelter in that block, so they had to go just somewhere into the basement, and to be able to do that they have to rush out of the building on the streets. And obviously putting themselves under the danger of being killed on their way. But, that's everything they could do really while trying to rescue their children and themselves. And I spoke to someone else who's called Kate, Katerina in Ukrainian, and she said that her flat was damaged completely. It was destroyed, and she managed to run out of the flat just before it was destroyed. And she hasn't been there from 3 a.m. She has been staying at her friend's place now, completely in shock. And if we can see her flat, what's left from her flat. And she says she can't go there now because the rescuers are saying that there are other explosives around which can detonate, so people can't approach really that site. And she sent me a message just saying that she's in shock, and obviously she couldn't expect that happening. Although everyone is sort of prepared that can happen in Kyiv, but how much can you prepare when you have to carry on with your life there? And it's not only Kyiv which was targeted. The recent numbers from Vitaly Klitschko I just checked, there are 20 people are killed in Kyiv, and at least 49 people have been injured, but also other cities were attacked: Vishneva, little town near Kyiv, and Zaporizhia, obviously, under constant attacks.
Okay. Olga, thank you very much for that. Well, let's turn now to another major flashpoint in the war, the situation in the Russian-occupied peninsula of Crimea. A resident there has told the BBC the situation is catastrophic as Ukrainian drones strike oil refineries and power plants, as well as military targets. And the BBC's Sarah Rainsford explains why Kyiv is striking now and why the peninsula matters to Vladimir Putin.
Why is Ukraine now hitting Crimea so hard? And why does that matter to Vladimir Putin? Crimea is the stolen jewel in Putin's crown. Its annexation in 2014 was illegal, but it made him really popular back in Russia. Now officials on the peninsula have declared a state of emergency because Ukrainian drones are hitting oil refineries and power plants. It is risky for people in Crimea to speak openly. But Igor did agree to tell us what life is like there.
The situation is catastrophic. We have blackouts, water cuts, the beaches are empty. People thought the war would be far away in Ukraine, but now it's here.
Russia launches its missiles from Crimea and it supplies its troops in southern Ukraine from Crimea. So Kyiv is trying to hit military logistics to force those troops to retreat. But why now? Ukraine's defense minister told me it's down to the tech. He said Ukrainian drones are so much better now, and he says it's having an impact. One sign we can see is the long queue of cars for the exit across the bridge that Putin had built to Russia, the biggest symbol of his takeover.